Magandang araw po sa inyong lahat. Narito kayo muli sa Mangahas Interviews. Pinalad tayo na makasama ang ating incoming Economic Planning Secretary ng National Economic and Development Authority, Dr. Arsenio R.C.M. Balisacan. Magandang araw, sir.
Magandang araw din, Malu. Thank you for inviting me.
Alright, hindi nyo na naitatanong, dati ring dekano ng UP School of Economics at may doctorate sa Economics from the University of Hawaii at Manoa. Balik gabinete, si Dr. RC. Okay sir, panimulang tanong, bakit kayo pinili at bakit nyo naman tinanggap na magbalik cabinet?
I think that itong magiging bago nating presidente is recognize naman niya yung kakayahan natin at alam niya yung mga nangyari sa ekonomiya natin nung ako'y nasa kabinete at hiniling niya sa akin kung pwedeng bumalik ako doon at siyempre ang hirap tumanggi nung una, sabi ko pag-isipan ko muna but because meron pa akong natirang term dito sa PCC hanggang January 2023 pa ako rito. At saka marami na akong naplanong gustong gawin after that, including pagbalik sa akademya. But then, yung call of service, lalo na ngayong ang hirap ang dami mga challenges sa ekonomiya at parang ayaw ko naman yung mapunta sa sitwasyon na I will regret later on for not also providing help when I was asked to do help. In other words, I do not want to lose my right to critique the government in the future or policy makers in the future. Or comment on the economy, things like that. Okay. If I would not respond to the call for service.
Okay. Secretary RC, parang tila naaalala kayo ni incoming President Bongbong Marcos na mention niya na nung kayo'y nasa NEDA, tumutulong kayo sa mga local government units. Sino ho ba ang mga naging endorser, kumbaga, ng inyong appointment? Si President BBM ba mismo? O naalala niyo ba yon na kayo'y nagkatagpo minsan nung kayo'y NEDA?
We had opportunities of meeting before, even when he was also still governor in my province, Ilocos Norte. We came from the same province. But I also had interactions with him nung siya ay nasa Senate, senator na siya, at ako'y naman ay nasa NEDA. And I recall that he asked me to provide him a briefing on the agricultural and rural issues, development issues, and we had quite long discussions on that on those issues. No? So yeah, so I think that that's why I'm quite surprised that 10 years later. He would call me because that was a long time before we met again, no? And remember that discussions, and he said that he would want my help to and get this thing, help him put these things that we discussed in previous meetings, and that was 10 years ago.
Tandaan pa. Okay, kayo po yung naging unang chairperson ng Philippine Competitive Commission. Ano yung maiiwan ninyong trabaho?
This is the Philippine Competition Commission. Ito yung bagong commission na create ng Congress noong 2015 at nagsimula noong 2016, February 2016. Ang trabaho kasi dito is to address yung concerns na yung ekonomiya natin ay maraming issues sa yung competition sa market, mga anti-competitive practices, ito yung mga cartel, mga abuse of market dominance by dominant players, at saka mga barriers to entry, doon sa mga pag-aaral ng mga or reports ng World Bank, ng OECD, EDB, palaging ipinapakita na ang mga challenges sa Philippine economy na compared sa other countries na we have far more competition issues in the Philippines than our countries. And so, and that is has been part of the problems in our ability sa paglago ng ekonomiya natin at sa pag-attract ng mga investors, no? Because yung mga monopolya, hindi talaga maganda sa business yon. Mga oligopoly, mga ganon, mga dominant players, may mga players na dominant na sa merkado, kapag may pumasok na bagong players, blinablock nila. Yun yung ang trabaho namin dito sa bagong commission is to prevent those and even penalize those that would violate those prohibitions by the new law.
Okay. So mula sa Philippine Competition Commission, balik NEDA, ano sa tingin niyo yung top line issues at challenges ng economic development sa bansa ngayong panahon, 2022 to 2028 under the Marcos II administration?
Yeah, I think it's very challenging compared to the situation when I first joined NEDA, no? Because the situations now, as you know, is we came from a pandemic, the pandemic has left deep scars, no, sa economy and sa social sector, no, in terms of education, health, livelihoods, may small and medium enterprise businesses na suffered badly, ano. So the foremost task is to get the economy recover quickly as possible, and move back the economy to the high growth trajectory, while at the same time ensuring that the growth this time would be more inclusive, more enduring, more resilient. So it is very challenging, especially that the global environment is also quite uncertain. All these global supply disruptions caused by or triggered by the Ukraine crisis, and that's spilling into many sectors, including food, where there's now a looming food crisis. You know, it's so very challenging situation.
So sabi nila, sir, maraming obstacles, ano? Maraming mga hadlang. Konti na lang yung ating tax revenues at parang tila walang ganong pagkukunan unless mag-impose o magpataw ng bagong taxes. Medyo malaki ang ating pagkakautang o ang debt burden. At significant pa rin yung joblessness, unemployment at underemployment. Ano ang mga naiisip nyong hakbang?
As I said earlier, ang foremost priority natin is getting the economy recover quickly, no? And along with that is the generation of employment, and this time this must be productive employment, hindi lang yung employment na nagkatrabaho ka ng isang oras sa isang araw, no? Because ang nabibilang ng statistics natin ay ganon, yung kung na-employed ka na for isang oras sa isang araw, considered ka na employed ka na, no? That's not the kind of jobs that we would want our people to have. We will want to have high quality jobs, fulfilling jobs. So, okay, anong gagawin natin? Admittedly, we have serious constraints like yung high debt natin, arising largely from the pandemic, our response to the pandemic, but there are other ways of addressing the debt apart from raising taxes. No, I think we have to study the options carefully to ensure na ma-avoid ang unnecessary increase in taxes, especially those that are so convenient to do. Sa akin, because of my advocacy sa poverty and socioeconomic inequality, we would want to ensure that, or to make sure that any tax measures would not disproportionately impact on the poor. Kasi ang nangyayari dun sa mga past experience natin at sa mga experiences ng mga ibang bansa is those sectors where the poor are mostly concentrated or dependent on, yun ang mga unang natatamaan ng contraction especially sa spending, no? Because there are two angles there, yung to reduce the tax burden, fiscal burden, no? One is increase the revenue, the other one is reducing spending, no? Dito sa pag-reduce ng spending, ang typically na natatamaan ng disproportionately dito ay yung mga dapat nagbe-benefits yung mga mahirap, no? I'm referring to sa investment sa education, sa health, mga public services. Ito yung disproportionately affected, and of course if you touch on those ones, then you are compromising your long-term potential naman as an economy, because if you underinvest in education now, in health now, then you don't expect the future generation to be as productive, as competitive as the children of, as the labor force of our neighbors like Thailand, Vietnam, Indonesia, who we know are investing aggressively in human capital, no?
NEDA has always been an advocate, yung parang ganyang mga spending. But actually, there are concerns that the new proposals, if they are ever officially endorsed, ang taxes na bago, mga motorcycle owners, digital services at digital service providers, and of course, mga additional luxury items. Ito ho ba parang merong parang pagtitimba ngayon? Itutuloy ba yan o hindi itutuloy?
I think those are proposals coming from our outgoing administration, no? And we will obviously we will be given the opportunity to study those closely and also get guidance from our president, no? So I am not in a position now to comment on those. I haven't actually, besides from seeing the list, I haven't really looked at closely at the incidents of each of these proposals.
Yun po mga non-tax revenues. Sabi nila, isa pa rin yun na pangsalo. Ano po? Meron pa bang maibebenta na mga properties ang gobyerno para mag-raise ng non-tax revenues?
I'm not quite sure about that. All I know is maraming properties ang gobyerno, pero dapat naman hindi gawin yung pagbenta ng mga properties as an easy out of the crisis, no? Kung meron pang mas magandang paraan, no? Halimbawa, yung mga some sectors that are undertaxed, halimbawa na alam natin, I know that say mining, for example, is undertaxed, and there are advantages of raising the tax there for environmental reason or not. And there are also luxury goods and unnecessary goods where you would want to raise taxes. But again, we are not in a position to say that we favor increasing taxes of this or that, but until we see the whole picture.
All right. As an economist, some people have, what do you think about proposals na magkaroon ng wealth tax ang Pilipinas? The richest Filipinos, meron yatang 1,900 plus na mga bilyonaryo sa Pilipinas. Sabi nila, baka pwedeng isa ito sa source ng revenue kung magkakaroon ng wealth tax. What do you think of that proposal?
In many countries, wealth tax is a typical tax imposed to prevent intergenerational transfers of inequity, no? Can you imagine a situation where the wealthy, they're very few, and their wealth that wealth is passed on to the next generation, and again wealth accumulation, and so the society can become so polarized, no? And the opportunities for the large majority of the people will be so limited. So kinakailangang balansehin yun that wealth tax in the US, ganun yan, na mataas yung
Election.
yung taxes sa mga what you call the idle or assets, unproductive assets, unproductive in the sense that these are just wealth sitting there, not generating creating expansions of the economic pie. I think that we should look into this as part of our program to ensure that the future generation would have the same opportunity, access to opportunities as this current generation.
Alright. Ang sabi po nung iba, kung talagang kailangan magtaas ng taxes o magpat ng bagong buwis, sana naman unahin muna yung pagpapahusay sa tax administration o paghabol sa mga tax evaders. Ang sabi nila, isang issue na parang hanging sa incoming President BBM, yung kanyang estate taxes na hindi pa nabayaran at may claim at notice ang BIR dito. Ano sa tingin ninyo? Ito ba'y magiging malaking issue o dapat desisyonan?
Let our Department of Finance address that. But going to that issue of tax administration, and I think you are correct. There are a lot of space there that can be used to improve tax collection efficiency. And to ensure that leakage is substantially reduced and we collect the appropriate taxes that are already mandated by law. So I think that should be part of our medium-term plan. And obviously the details of that would be work on later on, especially when our the new members of the cabinet are in place.
Okay. Sa tingin ninyo, parang dapat pag-usapan din ng cabinet yung nakabinbin na estate taxes claims? Kasi para lang din klaro na po yung libro, malinaw bang dapat bayaran o ayusin muna sa korte yung pila?
Yeah, I think that I don't know any of the legal issues here, Malu, and the circumstances, but I'm sure that our the Department of Finance Secretary's hand will be full on addressing these issues, particularly generating tax revenues. I must say also that while we are there, that a big part of the tax revenue generation really is also improving the economy, getting the economy moving quickly. Because if the size of the economic pie quickly increased, even without increasing the rate of taxes, you'll get a lot of revenue. That's why for me, a quick way out of it is really get the economy moving quickly, recovering quickly, while you are improving your ability to efficiently collect and administer taxes. Because obviously to address this ones, you cannot also sustain growth if you don't have the resources, a lot of resources to work on. And also, I would like to also note that I think that and the president has and I have talked about the role of the private sector in building the economy, growing the economy. Is keen of engaging the private sector in the development process, and that will include engaging them in public-private partnerships, so that we can free some resources of government that would otherwise go to social services like health, education. If the private sector can come in and would be able to provide the roads, the highways, the railways, the airports, and even hospitals and other social infrastructure, then that would reduce a lot of burden, fiscal burden from the public sector, from the government. But at the same time, of course, we would have to ensure that when public services are provided by the private sector, that those services will remain accessible and affordable for ordinary Filipinos, particularly the poor. So we'll have to see the design of that PPP to ensure that there is that space for affordability for the poor.
Sec RC, para ho dun sa usapin ng infrastructure, ano po, kailangan naman talaga at mukhang ang daming balanse ng build program na hindi pa tapos. Bahagi nito yung pangungutang para suportahan yung ilang infra projects, yung mga big ticket items. Ano sa tingin ninyo ang tamang pag-handle ng ating public debt? Kasi mukhang meron na namang posibilidad na mangutang o kumuha ng dagdag na pondo galing sa mga creditors natin. Ano po? Bilateral, multilateral. How do you handle the debt problem? Lalo na't malaki yung burden na ituloy pa yung mga infrastructure projects.
As I noted earlier, one approach is to get the private sector involved in the implementation, development, and even management and operations of infrastructure. That would save a lot of resources from government. Besides the fact that also, in many cases, private sector can bring in technology and good management to those projects. So that's one. The other one is with respect to borrowing. We have to, and our incoming Secretary Benjok now is an expert on this. We would have to examine how you finance the infrastructure, to ensure that that's the cheapest and most efficient way and most sustainable way of financing that project. Which questions we ask would be things like, should we resort to foreign borrowing or to domestic borrowing? When? What is the profile of the repayment? Things like that. And that's the work of the OF, and I'm sure they will have their hands full on that.
All right. Now, there are concerns that parang meron ng inequity sa development projects or programs na kumakalat sa buong bayan. How do you solve the problem of yung parang concern ng mga tao puro Imperial Manila or the big cities, Davao City at this time? How do you spread development across the nation?
Yeah, I think that really is very close to my alley, and for me, what I want to see is that opportunities or access to opportunities is equitable. Of course, it does not mean that economic activities need to be equally spread, no? Because that's not how economies or the economy works. There are sometimes advantages of having some agglomeration in one place, because that the cost of doing business will be low if the related services are together, no? But what is important is the various economic areas of the country must be efficiently connected. And that connection can be in the form of physical infrastructure, like communication, internet, roads, and as well as the ability to shift employment. For example, it must be relatively easy for, say, a farm worker, if there are opportunities to work as a construction somewhere else, or a semi-skilled worker in manufacturing, that must be feasible and open. And that's the whole economic transformation is all about, that you have this workers in low productivity areas, particularly in agriculture in this early stage of development, like us, no, like what we have now, to say manufacturing. I would like to see manufacturing reinvigorated, because I think that's one sector where we left, that have remained sluggish, because the manufacturing is a very good source of high quality employment, especially for semi-skilled workers.
All right.
That's if you look at the experiences of the more prosperous countries, even those that have just recently overtaken us, it's a vigorous, robust manufacturing sector that allowed them to reduce poverty dramatically in such short period of time. And I think that there's no reason why we cannot have that.
Okay.
And if we can, and the sector and the various studies, various observers of the Philippine economy, including foreign chambers, have already identified what those constraints are, na kung anong nagiging habulang sa paglago ng manufacturing sector. Ease of doing business, for example, is one.
Alright. Sir RC, ang isa hong malaking source ng pondo ng bayan, ano po, yung foreign exchange remittance ang ating overseas Filipino workers. Pero malaki sila at mukhang nabawasan ng konti dahil sa pandemya, pero bumabalik na ulit. But this started as an interim policy nung Marcos I administration. And now it's with us. At mukhang walang parang puwang na maging point of choice, hindi necessity ang pangingibang bansa para magtrabaho. Ano sa tingin ninyo ang future ng overseas labor migration? Dapat bang ituloy? Dapat bang palakihin pa? Dapat bang pabalikin na ang ating mga manggagawang Pilipino?
The key there, Malu, is the capacity of our economy to create productive employment opportunities. Kaya nga sinasabi ko earlier this, nasaan yung productive, high quality employment opportunities, particularly doon sa mga semi-skilled, but for our skilled workers, no? Doon pumapasok yung attention that must have to be given to our manufacturing, and also address the low productivity of our agriculture, because obviously yung ability of the industry na lumago and it depends so much on the productivity also of our agriculture. Otherwise, so kinakailangang i-address na ito. Our agricultural sector has been performing badly over decades, right? And in the meantime, our manufacturing is also has been sluggish. It's not performing well as compared to the manufacturing sector of our neighbors. And again, I said we know the issues. And I think the infrastructure, we are doing a good job there. We are addressing some a lot there. We have to do more and focus these infrastructure programs to where they contribute into that, building those linkages, addressing the weakest points in the supply chain. Yun ang kinakailangan natin, Malo. I mean, so to address your question, anong gagawin natin sa OFWs? We have to improve their options. Ano yung options nila? Kung walang good quality jobs here, bakit natin i-close yung door na sa labas sila? Mas masama yun. You are preventing them from improving their welfare. But what we want is to create those jobs here so that they have the opportunity or the option of not moving out. And that's a better one because we keep this human capital intact in our...
Okay. Pagka manufacturing, ano yung nakikita yung sunshine sector o yung medyo malaki ang potential na dapat talagang suportahan at uungos ang Pilipinas?
the options are wide. What's important is we create that environment that allows entrepreneurship of any kind.
Okay.
So they will identify, for example, there are a lot of opportunities on the e-commerce. There are particularly in the digital economy, especially those that will bridge that transition from manufacturing to eventually to services. And there's likely going to be fusion of all these sectors of the economy through the internet, the e-commerce, and we have to address this internet issues, the communication issues. As you know, many of you have experienced even our internet is of
One of the slowest
quality. Yeah. So compared to what our neighbors have, but it's improving. But I think it's so slow. So, and there are competition issues there. For example, exclusivity dealings that the Philippine Competition Commission has been is preventing access to cheaper internet services by or people who wants to do some work from home or some businesses.
Sec RC, ang sabi nila, ang problema sa ekonomiya natin, parang talagang malaki pa yung puwang para palakihin at palaguin. Kasi mas marami ang nasa informal sector at MSMEs. Ano po? Yung mga micro, small, and medium enterprises. So, kapital ang kulang nila. At hindi lang simpleng kapital, mga gamit. Ano po? At sabi nga ninyo, communication, maraming nag-online selling nitong panahon ng pandemya. Paano sila matutulungan? Yun yung majority ng ating mga entrepreneurs.
Yeah. I think we have this move also now in government. Even our BSP is very committed to this so-called inclusive finance. That access to finance should. I'm talking about relatively cheap. Capital, financial capital should not be limited to large enterprises. The truth of the matter is the cost of capital faced by SMEs is higher than the cost of capital for large enterprises. So we have government has to do something to bridge that divide so that kasi ang problema natin is we have so many SMEs, but their capacity to grow and become eventually medium enterprises and eventually to large enterprises is part of this issue is this access to finance. Part is their ability to networks, but that's where I think that when I look at some of the roadmaps being prepared or that have been prepared by DTI, for example, they appear to be well studied. And so let's implement them. What's preventing us from implementing those roadmaps?
Sabi nila marami nga daw ayuda program lalo na nung panahon ng pandemya, Bayanihan 1 and 2 at ngayon may ongoing dapat public transport drivers and operators, mga mahihirap na pamilya at mga farmers fisher folk. Pero ang question daw is may pondo pero hindi bumababa dahil inefficient ang implementation. Yun ba'y mapapaayos pa?
I think there's a big room for improvement there, Malu, and the incoming president has mentioned about digitizing the bureaucracy, the agencies, so that we can more efficiently manage funds and also make the agencies more efficient and lessen corruption. So I think that will push for this, especially that it has a lot of ramifications on the various sectors outside of government and the economy.
Okay. Ngayon, isa yung national ID system, yung PhilSys, para sana tumugon doon sa economic inclusion na goal ng ating gobyerno. Pero Iilang porsyento lang ng mga Pilipino ang may bank account. Iilang porsyento, mas maliit pa ang may savings. Paano mo yun lulutasin?
Oo, titingnan, yeah, so yung Philippine Statistics Authority that is has been given the mandate to implement that ID system is under the administrative supervision of NEDA. So I will have the opportunity to work closely with PSA to see how we can hasten the rollout of those IDs so that MSMEs in particular could have easier access to, because that's the intention to if you have that ID, then there's no other document requested to show to identify your show as evidence for your identity.
Okay. Na-interview po namin si incoming Finance Secretary Ben Jokno at ang sabi niya, ang isa sa fighting target ng Philippine Development Plan hanggang 2028 under Marcos II administration, ibaba to single digit ang poverty incidence. Dapat sana 14, 23 pero ang self-rated poverty 42%. Ano po? Sa tingin niyo ho ba ito achievable o pangarap sa dilim?
Hindi pangarap sa dilim. I have been looking at poverty numbers for a long time, and this is very sensitive to the economic growth and the quality of the economic growth. So as I said earlier, we want to aspire to move the economy to high growth trajectory of 6 to 8%. That should be achievable. Associated with that is also the improvement in the quality of that growth. And by quality, I mean that the kind of jobs generated by that growth are the ones that are productive and so with that, together with improvement in social services, I would like to see, for example, that the transfers, these conditional cash transfers for the poor, especially those that these are meant to improve access to education and health of children, will be strengthened. I discussed this also with the President, and he said that this should be coordinated properly with LGUs, and definitely that would need to be done. And so we can hasten or we can improve further the capacity of economic growth to induce poverty reduction. And so with that growth and the quality of and the improvement in social services, we should be able to reduce poverty from what I believe would be 18 to 20% in 2021. The official number hasn't come out, but
that's right.
Most likely more around that to a single digit. That's doable. 9-8%, yeah. Even in our experience, that appears to be a reasonable target.
All right. Now, Secretary RC, ang problem ng ibang tao is may mga pangako si incoming President BBM, 20 pesos per kilo ng bigas at ibalik ang oil price stabilization fund para i-manage yung fuel prices. However, ang kabaliktaran nito naman, ang kabila nito, may subsidies na kailangan ibigay o ilaan ng gobyerno. What do you think? Parang give them low price rice but subsidize? Does it work really? Ano yung silip ninyo bilang ekonomista?
The prices for commodities are determined by supply and demand. Okay. And now, if you want to reduce the price of, say, food, there are two ways of doing that. One is you subsidize it, but the other way is increase supply by improving the productivity of
Farmers.
of farmers, because if you can improve the productive farmers, then prices can decline without impacting negatively on their revenues and their profits. So that's what you need to balance to ensure that if you do reduce the price, make sure that the corresponding increase in productivity is there. Otherwise, they will also harm users. So, and that our farmers are some of the poorest of the poor, and they're a big group. You don't. Poverty reduction is our goal, and so you don't want to create a situation where you're contradicting that goal.
Opo. Ang data po ng Philippine Statistics Authority, ang poorest of the poor natin, farmers and fisher folk, sunod women and children. Ano po? So meron bang mga special points of interest kayo na tutukan sila?
No, I think lahat ng mga poor dapat matutukan. Lahat ng mga poor, regardless of your sectors. The only reason naman na gusto mong matutukan yung agriculture is nandun yung kadamihan. But there are also many poor in urban areas. They are in slum areas here. You go to slum areas, talagang unbelievable how two sets of people, one living like kings and the other living, in such a state, coexisting in one environment. That should not happen. If we use our resources properly.
Opo. Ang sili po ng ibang tao, parang mula noong nag-EDSA, wala namang pinagbago ang mga economic policies at programs without, of course, given some innovations. Kasi walang redistribution ng income na naganap. So, ibig sabihin, yung income divide, ganun pa rin. Hindi naman nag-filter down yung impact ng economic growth sa mga mahihirap. Sa tingin nyo ba, kaya pa yung ayusin? May redistribution?
Let me correct that impression, Malu, because if you look at the numbers, that's not true. That there has been quite a substantial reduction in poverty since 1986. Especially also, even in this administration, you have seen a reduction in the poverty numbers. What you would want to, I guess, claim is that we could have done better. That's I sure we could have done better given the economic growth that we have, and that's really my frustration in the Philippine economy. That as I look at how economic growth in other countries like Indonesia, Vietnam, Malaysia, all these prospering countries, whenever the economy grows, you see quite a substantial impact on poverty. Yung sa atin, medyo more sluggish yung response ng poverty. I think that has got to do with access to opportunities, access to quality employment, and the high inequality, and the high prices of basic services that where the meager incomes go into, like food. We have very high incidence of malnutrition in this country, of hunger. Given the level of our per capita income, it should have been much lower if you compare that with Bangladesh, for example, who has a much lower per capita income average GDP per person than us. Why are they doing well in preventing hunger and not us? Right. So there is the issue about inequity, and we have to address that issue.
All right. Secretary RC, your appointment, the economic team in general, has been well received by businessmen, bankers, and in the community at large. Pero sabi nila, the best laid out plans by the economic team sa Pilipinas. madalas nasisira o napipigilan ng political team o ng political domain dahil po pork barrel, corruption cases. Ano sa tingin ninyo parang magkakaroon kaya ng repeat yung Marcos 1 admin that the technocrats were overpowered by the cronies and the trapos? May pangamba ba kayong maulit yun?
I don't have perfect vision of the future, but all we can do is to do our work well and help in the further deepen the advocacy so that decisions made in the other branches of government or within our executive branch are properly informed. That's what NEDA can do best. That the decisions, whether these are big projects or programs or policies, are well informed, and it's our job to advise the president on those choices.
All right. But would you suggest na wala na muna sanang pork barrel, lalo na we need to recover faster pa? Kasi mukhang isa yun sa usapin na hanggang ngayon, kahit may Supreme Court ruling, tunay pa rin namang merong nakatak-in na mga pondo sa ilang departments or agencies ang ating mga legislators. Maiiwasan ba ang pork barrel o largesse?
Ideally, dapat wala. But I don't know. That is those decisions are done by our Congress. But I think kung may pork barrel man, at least we should know where they're going, and they are. I don't know yet what kind of controls, but you can put that to ensure that those go to high priority projects, that they are consistent with poverty reduction goals, addressing inequities, addressing economic resilience, and so on.
Ano sa tingin ninyo ang dapat priority fighting targets ng Philippine Development Plan under the Marcos II administration, 2022 hanggang 2028?
As I said earlier, I would like to see 6 to 8% growth. I think that's doable. Yeah, it's quite a wide range, but given the uncertainty in the world market, in the world economy, and the evolution of this pandemic, I think that it's okay to have a wide margin, but 6 is still high. 8 is it's quite high. So I think that getting there, getting that growth will be, if we achieve that growth, then the economic performance of this presidency, of the Marcos presidency, will be among the best, if not the best, because the Aquino administration, with us, had the best average so far.
That's right.
Had the 6.3 average. The Duterte administration would have had a high average, could have been better, in fact, than the Aquino administration, but the pandemic hit the economy, so the average would not look that high. But if we succeed in, and I don't have any strong reason at this point why we should not succeed, is that from 2020 to 2028, if we achieve 6.6 to 8%, then the Marcos administration will have the best performance in the last 50 years. Okay, so with that comes poverty reduction. Again, maraming conditions ito. Apart from the growth, they have to look at the quality of that growth. And I said employment creation must be the generation of high quality jobs must be the focal point of that growth. And then improve substantially the access to services, education, health, even information, so that all these other impediments to improving equity, which I've been calling judicial equity, or will allow the economy to move to a sustainable growth trajectory over the long haul. So that I still, when we were working on the ambition natin 2040 and 2014, 2015, we were, the assumption then was that if we could keep the growth at 6 to 7% for the next 30 years, and then up to 2040, then we would be joining the likes of South Korea. Will be entering the developed country state, right? And all the dimensions of inequities have been properly addressed. I think, given the destruction caused by the COVID, there might be some adjustments there on the end point, but I think anywhere from 2040 to 2045 would still be doable for us to achieve the ambition natin 2040.
All right. Excited po ba kayo na bumalik sa gabinete from Philippine Competition Commission? How does it feel like? First time?
Not challenge. No, it's not the same thing as when I first joined government or the cabinet. Now that I think that there's much more that confidence, because I've been there before. I know what I can build on that experience. I've had networks and I know many of these colleagues who are coming in. So I think we'll have a good chance of putting our house in order and move quickly. So in that sense, of course, my family is not happy, but that's something.
Not again.
Not again, yeah. But I think we can manage that.
All right. So mukhang fusion cabinet kayo po. Cory, Ramos, Erap, Duterte. Halo-halo. Ano po?
So yeah, I started serving as undersecretary under the Estrada administration. And I also was undersecretary at some point during the Arroyo administration. So yeah, I've already served, and I sort of advised government quite indirectly during the Ramos and the other governments.
Maraming salamat po. Incoming Economic Planning Secretary Arsenio M. Balisacan. Congratulations po, sir, at good luck.
Thank you very much, Malu, and thank you to our viewers.